What if I told you I know which team is going to win the 2024 NBA championship? Like, I could somehow see and predict the future like some sort of basketball mastermind. Would you believe me? Did you say no? Well, you're right.
No! God, please, no!
I don't know who will win this year's championship, and if I still tried convincing you that I could predict the future, then I'd be a filthy liar. But what if I could use logic and numbers to make an accurate prediction of this year's NBA champion? That sounds pretty interesting, right? We're watching the soon-to-become NBA champions right now. Here's exactly how and why they'll be on top of the NBA world in a matter of just weeks. What do you call a player who is averaging 31 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists on 57% over his NBA playoff career? The face of the NBA? The best basketball player in the world? The MVP of the playoffs? Just a decade ago, numbers like these would have had a player in the conversation for the greatest playoff performer of all time, let alone the world's best player. But now, this player has made numbers like this look so typical and easy to do that hardly anyone is talking about it. That player's name is Luka Doncic. Well, then what do you call a player who is averaging 23, 5, and 4 on 57% true shooting as the second option on his team? You probably say to yourself, man, if those numbers make him the second option, that means his team must have some serious firepower. Well, let's keep going. It doesn't end there. What do you call a duo that is averaging a combined 54 points, 14 rebounds, and 12 assists over their NBA playoff career? Undeniably, that duo would be mentioned right up there as the most lethal duo of all time. Speaking of which,
Minnesota's top-rated defense is going to be challenged trying to slow them down. Arguably the best offensive backcourt in the history of the NBA in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving.
After a statement victory in Game 1 on the home court of the NBA's best defense, former NBA head coach and current TNT broadcaster Stan Van Gundy called Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving the best backcourt in NBA history, which sounds like quite the audacious claim for a pair of teammates who have just a season and a half under the belt. Are they the NBA's best backcourt at this very moment? They undoubtedly are. But can you really sit there and say objectively that these two are better than the Splash Brothers who won 4 titles in 8 seasons? What about the Detroit Pistons of Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars who won consecutive championships? Magic and Byron Scott, Tony Parker and Ginobili. That's not to mention the Houston Rockets of James Harden and Chris Paul, who once pulled off 65 wins in a season and were a difference of a few possessions from reaching the NBA Finals. We all understand the greatness of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving from an individual standpoint, but flashy highlights and numbers aside, to be considered the best backcourt ever, they'll at least need to win this year's title to only get their foot in the door. But the good news is, they are well on their way to making that happen. Last year, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray combined for over 1,100 points throughout the postseason en route to the title. In 2022, Steph and Klay scored 1,021 points between them to their 4th championship. In 2021, Giannis and Chris Middleton were even better than Jokic and Murray were in 2023, scoring 1,176 points throughout the postseason. That 1,176 was even a touch higher than LeBron and AD, combining for 1,162 in 2020. And finally, in 2019, thanks to Kawhi Leonard's magical postseason run for the North, Boardman and his next best player, Pascal Siakam, combined for 1,187, the highest mark of any duo of the last 5 years. 732 of those points came from Kawhi. The dude was otherworldly that year. But clearly, the blueprint to winning a title in the recent past has been a duo that can score in bunches. We aren't even to the NBA Finals yet. At the time I have these numbers pulled up in front of me, Kyrie and Luka have combined for a touch under 700 points through 14 postseason games, putting them well on pace to combine for over 1,100. Who knows, maybe even 12 or 1,300 points this postseason. That aside, Luka and Kyrie have been proving all season long that they are the most productive duo in basketball. But it has taken more than just the heroics of Luka and Kyrie for the Mavericks to become a true contender. Until just recently, defenses were happy to play Luka and Kyrie one-on-one to prevent those two from finding role players in advantageous positions. Number 77 and number 11 were scoring in bunches, but the team wasn't exactly winning many games. Well, then what's really been the difference? Along with an impressive defensive turnaround, taking Dallas from the bottom 10 to the top 15, the team has experimented with different ways to keep the ball moving without Luka or Kyrie needing to grind down a possession in isolation. If a team is going to guard Luka straight up to take away opportunities from role players, a good counter to that is using your star away from the ball to force an opportunity for said role player. What needs to be said that hasn't already been said about the play of Dallas's role players? PJ Washington has been a pleasant surprise for Dallas all season, especially this postseason after he put together some monster games. And who knew our man Daniel Gafford was basically a baby Nikola Jokic? For a mostly rim-running, dunking center who plays right around 20 minutes a night, Dallas has truly weaponized Gafford at the high post, with both Kyrie and Doncic screening for role players to free them up near the rim. The more I compare Dallas from early in the season to now, the more one thing dawns on me, and that's the role of Luka Doncic. With his play style and naturally slow-moving game, Luka often generates so much gravity. This often had Dallas looking clunky on offense as other guys tried fitting in, but especially in these playoffs, that has mostly changed. That's not to say Luka isn't still controlling the game. He is, and he's still leading the playoffs in usage rate, but that's not a bad thing. Luka is great. Great players should have the ball a lot. The issue was the Mavs needed to change, and that appears to be happening. Suddenly, Dallas is playing fast. They're running in transition, even more so with athletic guys like Washington there to slash or catch a lob. Kyrie even acknowledged this point after Luka's game winner in Game 2, saying, "Fluidity, just how we play and our pace. When we get up and down the floor, we are a tough team to beat." The Mavs' current pace during this postseason is 92.66. Of the last 8 NBA champions, only the Cavs in 2016 had a pace below 94. If Dallas can keep pace high over 48 minutes for the rest of the playoffs, they can give themselves a decided edge considering that Boston plays slower. Since the NBA All-Star break, the duo of Luka and Kyrie are a plus 12.8 when on the court together. That's just a few hairs off of elite star duo Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in Boston. But here's the biggest thing that should scare the other 3 teams playing for a title right now. If Kyrie and Luka are already comparable to Brown and Tatum, who have been together for nearly 8 years, just how much better does this mean the Mavs can get? Stop thinking. I'll answer that for you. They can get a world better. The Mavericks have 2 of the greatest shot makers in the league, and now they are only reaching their peak. Come NBA final time, knock on wood, Luka and Kyrie might have gone far enough and experienced enough together that they could single-handedly go out there and win the NBA championship. In 2020 and 2021, Dallas just didn't have enough talent to compete. In 2022, Dallas was an improved version of Jalen Brunson away from possibly winning the NBA championship. In 2023, Kyrie and Luka's season spiraled out of control, and because of it, most wrote them off saying they would never be a fit. They said Dallas was wrong for trading for Kyrie and that he would just end up leaving in free agency anyway. For the most part, the critics weren't terribly wrong. When the trade happened for Kyrie, here I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, finally, the Dallas Mavericks finally did it. After nearly 5 long years of going at it by himself and still keeping the Mavs at a reputable state, Luka Doncic at last has some superstar help by his side. It's a bold, risky, and even controversial trade, albeit, but it might have been just what the Mavericks needed. When Dallas lost to Chicago towards the end of last season, the Mavs' post-trade deadline fell into an awful 8-13 record with Kyrie joining Luka in the backcourt. 8-13. But even with them making me look terrible for saying they would compete for a championship last season, I stuck through and said it was only a matter of time before this duo would click. Both guys are natural ball handlers, great facilitators of the offense, possess great passing skills and leadership intangibles, and both have this rare gift of being able to control the tempo of the game or to see and feel things before they even happen. This is why I and many others thought Kyrie was eventually going to be happy with Luka, and Luka's going to be more than happy with Kyrie playing off of him. In fact, Kyrie played some of his best basketball when playmaking responsibilities were on someone else's shoulders. And lo and behold, we are watching it all manifest in front of our very eyes in these playoffs. Trailing the Minnesota Timberwolves by 18 points in the first half of Game 2, the Mavs battled back and trailed 108-106 in the final 30 seconds. Another testament of how comfortable Kyrie and Luka have become. With the game clock winding down, Luka Doncic got T-Wolves Defensive Player of the Year Rudy Gobert switched onto him at the top of the three-point arc. After making Gobert look like he was on the dance floor, Doncic pulled back for a step-back three-pointer that hit nothing but net. And the Mavs won Game 2, 109-108, while securing a 2-0 series lead. Not only did Luka remind us that he can sometimes single-handedly lift Dallas with his transcendent ability, the Mavs winning both games on the road unlocked some serious confidence moving forward. Game 3, just Luka hitting a clutch fadeaway, and then Kyrie being Mr. Fourth Quarter Clutch to close the game out 3-0. We know Kyrie's history too. The last time he was on this stage was when he was erupted for 21 points in the third quarter, hitting 9 of 10 shots from the field while LeBron was in foul trouble on the bench. Kyrie's 42 points gave his squad a 3-1 lead. Don't forget what Uncle Drew can do on any given night. The man's due for a throwback performance at some point. With this duo finding the rhythm, Dallas is in a spot to be somewhere they haven't been in 13 long years. Now, with role players and overall defense stepping up, honestly, I just don't know if there is anyone who can contain these guys in a 7-game series. Hope I didn't jinx them. But drop your position on the Mavs and their chances. What do you think? Did I convince you Dallas will win? I know I did. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.